Judge Madison Hayes stared at her smoking engine with mounting frustration. The pristine Mercedes, only 8 months old and meticulously maintained, had chosen the most isolated stretch of Route 16 to betray her, 15 miles from the nearest service station, and with cell reception flickering between one unreliable bar and none. The timing couldn't have been worse. After 3 grueling days at the judicial conference in Phoenix, she was already running behind schedule for tomorrow morning's high-profile case, a multi-defendant racketeering trial involving the Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club that had consumed her professional life for the past month. The prosecution's evidence had proven surprisingly complex, requiring additional preparation she'd planned to complete tonight. Now, as dusk gathered along the empty highway and her third call to roadside assistance dropped mid-sentence, Madison resigned herself to a significant delay. She leaned against the car's hood, conservative pencil skirt and silk blouse absurdly formal against the backdrop of desert scrub and asphalt, designer heels already collecting dust from the roadside. The distant rumble registered peripherally at first, engine noise gradually distinguishing itself from the ambient desert wind. Headlight illuminated the curve ahead, belonging to a motorcycle approaching at moderate speed. Madison straightened instinctively, legal training automatically calculating risk factors, isolated location, no witnesses, professional position that earned her plenty of enemies. When Jaden Reyes stopped his battered Harley to help the stranded motorist, neither realized their lives were about to intersect in ways that would challenge everything they thought they understood about justice, judgment, and the complicated territories of the human heart. If you love forbidden love stories, subscribe and don't miss the next one. The motorcycle slowed as it approached, rider assessing the situation with obvious caution before pulling onto the shoulder 20 feet from Madison's disabled vehicle. The distance, not too close to appear threatening, not too far to offer assistance, registered as deliberate consideration. The rider dismounted with fluid ease that suggested long familiarity with his machine. Tall and broad-shouldered in worn jeans and faded leather jacket, he removed his helmet to reveal features that balanced rugged and refined, late 30s perhaps, with close-cropped dark hair and the watchful eyes of someone accustomed to evaluating potential trouble. "Engine trouble?" he asked, voice carrying easily across the distance he maintained. Madison nodded, professional assessment noting details automatically. Motorcycle older but well-maintained, leather weathered rather than decorative, no visible club insignia or gang markers that might suggest immediate threat. "Overheated, I think," she replied, keeping her tone neutral. "Roadside assistance is having trouble finding my location." He approached with measured steps, hands visible in the universal signal of non-threat. Up close, Madison noticed additional details, the mechanical precision in his movements suggesting military background, the calluses on his hands indicating manual work despite the intelligence evident in his gaze. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked, stopping at a respectful distance. Used to work as a mechanic, might be something simple. Professional caution warred briefly with practical necessity. Her options were limited, and darkness approached with desert-swift inevitability. Madison stepped aside with a brief nod. "Thank you, I'd appreciate that." He moved to the still-smoking engine with practiced efficiency, examination methodical rather than haphazard. "Pop the hood release?" Madison complied, watching as he propped the hood and began systematic assessment of her engine. His competence was immediately apparent, no wasted movements, no performative display of masculine expertise so common in roadside assistance scenarios. "Coolant leak," he diagnosed after several minutes. Hose connection failed, not something roadside assistance could fix easily anyway. He straightened, wiping his hands on a bandana pulled from his pocket. Nearest service stations in Miller's Junction, about 15 miles ahead. They close at 8. Madison checked her watch, 7:15 p.m. Even if roadside assistance arrived immediately, they wouldn't reach Miller's Junction before closing, which meant hotel accommodations, rescheduled court proceedings, and significant professional disruption. "I appreciate the diagnosis," she said, already calculating alternatives. "I'll try roadside assistance again." "They'll just tow you to Miller's Junction," he replied with practical certainty. where you'll sit until morning when the shop opens. If you're headed east, there's nothing else for 40 miles. The assessment aligned with Madison's limited knowledge of the area's geography. She'd chosen the scenic route specifically for its isolation after days of conference networking, a decision that now seemed remarkably poor. "I could give you a ride to the station," he offered, the suggestion presented without pressure. "See if they might stay open for an emergency repair. Owner's a reasonable guy if you catch him before closing." The proposal crystallized Madison's predicament: accept assistance from a stranger that involved physical proximity on his motorcycle, or remain stranded with increasingly limited options as darkness fell. Neither choice aligned with her usual careful risk assessment. "That's very kind, but accepting rides from strangers isn't your standard protocol," he finished with unexpected perception. "Understandable." Something in his easy acknowledgement of her caution, without offense or pressure, shifted Madison's evaluation slightly. He pulled out his wallet, extracting a worn military ID card and offering it with straightforward practicality. "Jaden Reyes, former Army mechanic, currently employed at Riley Construction in Cedar Ridge. Feel free to take a picture of my license plate too. Send it to someone for security." The gesture, practical rather than defensive, surprised her. This wasn't the behavior of someone with malicious intent, but rather someone familiar with assessment of strangers' trustworthiness. Madison studied the ID, genuine based on her courtroom experience with various identifications, before returning it with a slight softening of her professional reserve. Madison Hayes. She deliberately withheld her judicial title, an omission born of both security consciousness and strange reluctance to introduce the formality of her position into this roadside interaction. Something about Jaden Reyes suggested he would respond differently to Judge Hayes than to simply Madison, stranded motorist. "Still not comfortable with the motorcycle option?" he asked, reading her continued hesitation. "Alternative plan. I ride to Miller's Junction, explain the situation to Frank at the station. See if he'll send his tow truck back for you while I wait there." The offer, representing significant inconvenience to him with no obvious benefit, further shifted Madison's assessment. "That's remarkably generous, Mr. Reyes, but I couldn't impose to that extent." "Jaden," he corrected mildly. "And it's no imposition. Been on the receiving end of roadside assistance myself plenty of times." A brief, self-deprecating smile suggested history behind the statement. Karmic balancing. Something about his straightforward decency, no performance, no expectation, simply practical problem-solving for a stranger, finalized Madison's decision. "I'd appreciate the ride," she said, surprising herself almost as much as him. "If your offer still stands." If he was startled by her acceptance, he masked it well. "Absolutely. Fair warning though, only have one helmet. Safety regulations say it's yours." "The law does tend to prioritize head protection," Madison agreed, the irony of her phrasing lost on him without knowledge of her profession. As he retrieved an extra jacket from his saddlebag, nights get cold in the desert, even summer. Madison sent a quick text to her judicial assistant with Jaden's name and license plate number. Professional precaution, though her instincts increasingly suggested it was unnecessary. What neither realized, as Madison carefully mounted the motorcycle behind Jaden, hands hesitantly finding appropriate position at his waist, was that their lives were already connected through court documents waiting on her desk back in Cedar Ridge. In less than 24 hours, Judge Madison Hayes would be determining the legitimacy of search warrants that had yielded crucial evidence against the Steel Wolves. Evidence collected from property belonging to one Jaden Reyes, former prospect whose complicated history with the club would prove central to the prosecution's case. The motorcycle engine rumbled to life beneath them, vibration unfamiliar, yet not entirely unpleasant as Madison adjusted to this unexpected intimacy with a stranger. As they pulled onto the empty highway, desert wind replacing air conditioning's careful control, she found herself experiencing an unusual sensation. The temporary suspension of the ordered, regulated existence she had constructed with such deliberate care. What she couldn't know was how completely that carefully constructed order was about to unravel, set in motion by the simple act of accepting help from the last person she should be sharing any connection with. By the time Madison Hayes understood who had truly stopped to help her on that isolated highway, it would be too late for either of them to prevent the collision of their separate worlds. The 15-mile ride to Miller's Junction altered Madison's perception in unexpected ways. After initial tension, body rigid with cautious space between them, the practical demands of motorcycle balance gradually required adaptation. By the halfway point, she had settled against Jaden's back, borrowed leather jacket enveloping her in warmth that smelled of motor oil, desert air, and something indefinably masculine. The experience was disorienting in its unfamiliarity. Wind against her face, engine vibration beneath her, sunset panorama unfiltered by window glass. Madison's carefully ordered existence allowed minimal spontaneity. Federal judges didn't typically find themselves pressed against strangers on motorcycles with desert dust in their hair and borrowed helmets obscuring their identity. Most disorienting was her own response. Rather than enduring the journey with professional stoicism, Madison found herself experiencing something dangerously close to enjoyment. The freedom of movement, the sensory immersion, the temporary suspension of control, all triggered responses she hadn't anticipated. Miller's Junction materialized from desert landscape with little warning, a collection of weathered buildings clustered around a single intersection. The service station Jaden steered toward showed signs of imminent closure, attendant already cleaning tools as they pulled into the gravel lot. "Wait here," Jaden suggested after helping her dismount with steadying hands at her waist. Frank responds better to people he knows. Madison watched as he approached the older man, conversation animated but not confrontational. Frank's initial head shaking gradually transformed to reluctant nodding as Jaden gestured back toward her. Something about his advocacy, persistent yet respectful, succeeded where her own status-based expectations might have failed. "Frank says he can send his nephew with the tow truck," Jaden reported upon returning. "But actual repair won't happen until morning. Parts issue." Madison's carefully structured schedule collapsed completely with this information. Court calendar, case preparation, witness interviews, all requiring adjustment based on mechanical failure beyond her control. "Is there a hotel?" she asked, professional composure masking frustration. "One motel probably has vacancies, but—" Jaden hesitated, unusual caution in his expression. "But it's not exactly judicial conference quality," she finished, the professional reference slipping out before she could censor it. His eyebrow raised slightly at her word choice. "You're a lawyer?" "Something like that," Madison hedged, strangely reluctant to reveal her complete identity. Interactions changed dramatically once people discovered she was a federal judge. Deference replacing authenticity, caution overriding natural conversation. "Motel's basically clean but minimal," he continued without pressing for details. "Truck stop diner across the street serves decent food until 10. Not many options in Junction." The limitations represented significant inconvenience, yet seemed strangely insignificant after unexpected motorcycle adventure. "I appreciate your help navigating this. I'd have been stranded for hours without your assistance." "Mechanical problems don't check bank accounts before happening," he replied with philosophical acceptance. "We're all just one breakdown away from needing help." The perspective, remarkable in its unpretentious wisdom, caught Madison off guard. In her professional world of careful hierarchies and status signifiers, such egalitarian outlooks rarely found genuine expression. Frank's nephew arrived with surprising promptness, clipboard ready for Madison's signature on towing authorization. As she completed paperwork, Jaden loaded her overnight bag and briefcase onto his motorcycle. "Motel's half-mile down the road," he explained at her questioning look. "Figured you'd prefer not climbing on back of a tow truck in that outfit." Madison glanced down at her silk blouse and pencil skirt, utterly impractical for current circumstances. "That's thoughtful, thank you." The Desert Palms Motel fulfilled every expectation its name suggested: faded signage, dated furnishings, and an office where ancient air conditioning fought losing battle against persistent heat. The proprietor, a woman whose weathered features suggested decades in the desert climate, viewed Madison's executive attire with undisguised curiosity. "One night?" Madison requested, credit card already extended. Whatever room is available. Got 3 choices, the woman replied, desert dry humor evident. Cactus view, parking lot view, or air conditioner that actually works view. Last one's $10 extra. Functional air conditioning seems worth premium pricing, Madison replied, matching her tone. As transaction concluded, Madison turned to find Jaden waiting respectfully near the door, her belongings still secured on his motorcycle. The realization that their unlikely encounter approached conclusion created unexpected regret, a response she immediately questioned given their brief acquaintance. "I can't thank you enough," she said, professional sincerity masking more complex reactions. "You've turned a potential disaster into merely an inconvenience." "Happy to help," he replied with characteristic straightforwardness. "Frank's nephew is reliable. Your car should be ready by noon tomorrow." Practical assistance completed. Clear conclusion reached, yet neither moved toward the natural separation point. The hesitation, mutual and uncharacteristic for both, created momentary suspension between appropriate ending and unexpected continuation. "Have you eaten?" Madison asked, surprising herself with the query. "I'd like to buy you dinner. Small repayment for significant assistance." Appropriate gratitude, she told herself. Nothing more complicated than acknowledgement of practical help received. Jaden studied her briefly, assessment evident in his expression. "You don't owe me anything." "It's not about owing," she clarified. "It's about acknowledging help freely given." Something in her distinction appeared to resonate with him. "Truck stop diner isn't exactly judicial conference quality," she finished, deliberate callback to earlier exchange. "I find I'm not particularly concerned about dining aesthetics at present." His smile, genuine rather than performative, transformed his features from merely handsome to something more compelling. "In that case, I accept. Fair warning, though. Junction Diner serves the kind of food that prioritizes quantity over presentation. After conference banquets where opposite applies, that sounds remarkably refreshing." The diner exceeded Madison's deliberately lowered expectations. Final booths worn but clean, waitstaff efficient without pretense, menu offering straightforward comfort food without artisanal pretensions. They settled into corner booth, incongruous pairing of her formal attire and his worn leather creating visual disruption neither acknowledged. "So," Jaden began after ordering coffee, "what takes something like a lawyer along the scenic route through desert back roads?" The careful echo of her evasion didn't escape Madison's notice. "Judicial conference in Phoenix. Thought empty highway might provide mental decompression before returning to case backlog." Decompression on deserted highways. He nodded with apparent understanding. "Familiar concept, though usually I'm on 2 wheels rather than 4. "Is that what brought you to that particular stretch of nowhere?" she asked, genuine curiosity replacing professional assessment. "Heading back from construction job in Westfield," he explained. "Crew finished early, taking long way home before starting new project Monday." The parallels in their situations, both seeking solitude and open road as transition between responsibilities, created unexpected connection. Conversation flowed with surprising ease as they navigated neutral topics, regional geography, highway construction, desert ecology, without venturing into personal territories that might activate professional boundaries. Their meals arrived, substantial portions of American classics without pretentious presentation, further relaxing formality as shared dining necessitated natural interaction. Madison found herself noticing details she typically filtered from awareness: the precise dexterity in his scarred hands, the attentive listening evident in his responses, the absence of performative behaviors so common in professional interactions. "You mentioned Army mechanic earlier," she noted as dinner concluded. "How long did you serve?" 8 years, 2 tours in Afghanistan." His response was matter-of-fact rather than seeking recognition. "Learned more about improvised repairs than factory manuals cover, which explains your roadside diagnostic abilities. Along with current employment limitations," he added with pragmatic acceptance. Construction work pays bills but isn't exactly career trajectory. The statement contained neither complaint nor resentment, simply acknowledgement of reality that triggered Madison's awareness of privilege she typically didn't examine. Her career path, elite education, clerkships, partnership track positions, judicial appointment, represented opportunities systematically unavailable to many, including the man whose assistance had proven invaluable. Sometimes paths take unexpected turns, she offered, the platitude inadequate even to her own ears. True enough. Something in his tone suggested deeper meaning behind simple agreement. Mine's taken several I never anticipated. Before she could inquire further, his phone vibrated with incoming message. The subtle shift in his expression as he checked the screen suggested unwelcome interruption. Problem? She asked. Just reminder of tomorrow's complications. He returned phone to pocket with deliberate casualness that didn't quite mask underlying tension. Should probably get going. Early start. As they exited the diner, desert night had fully descended, temperature dropping dramatically from daytime heat. Stars blazed with intensity impossible in urban settings, Milky Way clearly visible against velvet darkness. Madison paused involuntarily, gaze drawn upward toward celestial display typically obscured by city lights and busy schedule. Quite something, isn't it? Jayden observed quietly beside her. One advantage of nowhere places, unfiltered view of everything above us. The perspective, finding value in isolation others might dismiss, resonated unexpectedly. Madison's carefully constructed life prioritized achievement metrics that left little space for stargazing or motorcycle adventures or conversations with strangers in desert diners. I should get back to the motel, she said finally, professional responsibility reasserting itself. Court preparation waiting. Jayden nodded, understanding evident in his expression. Of course. Can I give you a lift? It's about half-mile walk. The offer, practical rather than presumptuous, presented decision point, appropriate conclusion versus extended connection, professional boundaries versus unexpected disruption to routine, sensible refusal versus continuation of evening's deviation from normal patterns. That would be helpful, Madison found herself saying. Rational justification. Darkness, unfamiliar location, impractical footwear, masking more complex motivations she chose not to examine too closely. The brief motorcycle journey to Desert Palms occurred in comfortable silence, physical proximity now familiar rather than awkward as Madison settled against his back without previous hesitation. At motel entrance, Jayden waited until she had room key in hand before offering simple farewell. Good luck with your car tomorrow, he said, no artificial extension or expectation in his manner. And safe travels back to Cedar Ridge. Thank you again, Madison replied with genuine appreciation beyond professional courtesy. For everything. As his motorcycle disappeared into desert night, Madison experienced unusual sensation of watching transition point, momentary intersection of separate lives moving in different directions, brief connection unlikely to recur given their disparate worlds. What she couldn't know as she entered her motel room was how completely wrong that assessment would prove. In less than 18 hours, their paths would intersect again in her courtroom. Jayden Reyes named in search warrant documents central to case against Steel Wolves, his property and past connection to Motorcycle Club representing pivotal evidence in RICO prosecution. By the time Madison Hayes recognized the defendant's key witness in her courtroom, the complications of their innocent roadside encounter would have expanded beyond any possibility of simple professional recusal. Madison's judicial chambers represented everything the Desert Palms Motel lacked. Climate control maintaining perfect temperature, ergonomic furniture supporting proper posture, soundproofed walls ensuring uninterrupted concentration, after-night and accommodations where air conditioning cycled between deafening and non-existent, the controlled environment should have provided welcome return to normalcy. Instead, Madison found herself strangely restless as she reviewed case files for the morning's hearing. The Steel Wolves prosecution had consumed her professional attention for weeks. Complex RICO charges against Motorcycle Club's leadership, with evidence gathered through multiple search warrants requiring judicial review before trial proceeded. Her clerk had organized relevant documents with characteristic efficiency: warrant applications, supporting affidavits, evidence logs, and procedural challenges from defense counsel. Madison's methodical review had reached property records attached to primary search warrant when familiar name leapt from sterile legal document: Jayden Alexander Reyes, property owner of 1421 Westridge Road, site where prosecution had discovered financial records documenting Steel Wolf's alleged criminal enterprises. The coincidence seemed impossible. Desert highway encounter with same individual central to case before her. Yet military ID she'd viewed yesterday matched information in court documents, confirming unmistakable connection between helpful stranger and significant prosecution witness. Ethical implications crystallized immediately. Judicial Canon 2 demanded avoidance of impropriety and appearance of impropriety. Their interaction, innocent as it had been, created potential conflict requiring disclosure at minimum, possible recusal at maximum. The timing couldn't be worse, with trial date approaching and significant resources already invested in proceedings before her. Madison's clerk interrupted her ethical calculation with gentle knock. "Judge Hayes, prosecution team has arrived for pre-hearing conference." Professional training activated automatically. Personal concerns subordinated to procedural requirements as Madison gathered relevant documents. The judicial robe settled across her shoulders with familiar weight as she prepared to enter her courtroom, where Assistant U.S. Attorney Caroline Weber waited with case files and determined expression. "Your Honor," Weber acknowledged with professional respect. "Thank you for accommodating schedule adjustment after your car trouble." "Unavoidable delay," Madison replied neutrally, settling into judicial position behind imposing bench. "I've reviewed defense motion challenging primary search warrant. Your response?" Weber launched into prepared argument with practiced precision. Probable cause properly established, warrant appropriately limited in scope, evidence collection following procedural requirements. Madison listened with professional attention despite growing awareness that ethical disclosure couldn't be delayed. The defense particularly challenges connection between confidential informant statements and property searched, Madison noted, focusing on relevant legal issue rather than personal complication. Warrant application seems to establish Mr. Reyes as former prospect whose property was used by club members, but connection appears tenuous. "We have additional context to provide regarding Mr. Reyes," Weber responded eagerly. "He's agreed to testify regarding club's use of his residence for financial operations. His testimony directly connects property to criminal enterprise." The information escalated Madison's ethical dilemma significantly. Not merely warrant challenge, but active witness cooperation meant Jayden's role extended beyond property owner to potential trial participant. Disclosure of their interaction couldn't be postponed. "Ms. Weber, before proceeding further, I must disclose potential conflict requiring your consideration," Madison began, professional tone masking internal discomfort. "Yesterday evening, my vehicle experienced mechanical failure on Route 16. The individual who provided roadside assistance was, I've now realized, Jayden Reyes." Weber's expression shifted from confusion to alarm as implications registered. "Your Honor, are you saying you had personal contact with key prosecution witness?" "Brief coincidental encounter," Madison confirmed. "At the time, neither of us recognized the connection to these proceedings. The interaction was limited to mechanical assistance and brief meal afterward in public establishment." "Nature of your discussions?" Weber asked, professional courtesy barely masking prosecutorial assessment. "No case-related matters were discussed," Madison stated firmly. "Neither of us referenced court proceedings or Steel Wolf's investigation. Mr. Reyes was unaware of my judicial position, and I did not recognize his name in relation to pending case until reviewing documents this morning." Weber's calculated silence communicated professional dilemma, balancing ethical considerations against strategic advantages of maintaining judge familiar with complex case. "The government appreciates your disclosure, Your Honor. While unexpected, the interaction appears coincidental rather than substantive. We don't believe recusal is necessary given limited nature of encounter." Madison had anticipated this response. prosecutors rarely welcomed judicial substitutions mid-proceeding, particularly when replacement judge might prove less favorable to government positions. Defense counsel would likely adopt opposite view when informed, creating adversarial assessment of what she had hoped would remain neutral ethical matter. I'll disclose this interaction to defense counsel immediately and consider whether additional steps are necessary, Madison concluded, professional responsibility momentarily resolving personal uncertainty. Please have Mr. Reyes available for afternoon session. I'll need to assess whether our interaction creates appearance concerns regarding his testimony. As Weber departed to prepare for formal hearing, Madison returned to chambers with growing awareness that yesterday's innocent encounter had created professional complications beyond simple disclosure requirements. Her judgment regarding warrant validity now carried potential appearance of bias regardless of decision direction. Ruling for prosecution might suggest favorable treatment from roadside assistance, while ruling against might indicate overcorrection to avoid such appearance. The ethical entanglement extended beyond professional concerns into territory Madison rarely acknowledged. The unexpected personal connection formed during their brief interaction. Jaden Reyes had registered as genuine in world, where authenticity rarely penetrated formal roles. Their conversation had momentarily suspended professional identities, creating connection based on shared circumstance rather than status considerations. Now that connection represented liability, requiring management rather than unexpected bright spot in otherwise routine return journey. The transformation created unexpected regret, Madison found professionally concerning. Emotional response had no place in judicial assessment, yet she couldn't entirely dismiss awareness of how disclosure would affect Jaden's perception of their interaction. When her clerk announced defense counsel's arrival for disclosure conference, Madison had compartmentalized personal considerations behind professional facade. Judicial ethics provided clear procedural pathway, regardless of complicated responses. She would disclose interaction, consider arguments regarding recusal, and proceed according to ethical requirements regardless of personal preference or professional convenience. What she couldn't prepare for was Jaden's reaction upon discovering the stranded motorist he'd assisted was federal judge determining admissibility of evidence collected from his property, evidence he'd apparently agreed to contextualize through testimony against former associates. The intersection of their separate worlds had expanded beyond coincidence into complication. Neither had anticipated when motorcycle stopped alongside disabled Mercedes on Desert Highway. The courtroom fell silent as Jaden Reyes entered that afternoon. Madison maintained judicial composure despite immediate recognition between them. His momentary freeze at threshold, eyes widening slightly before professional mask descended. Neither betrayed reaction visible to observers, yet unspoken acknowledgement passed between them with electric intensity. The court calls Jaden Reyes regarding evidence seized at 1421 Westridge Road, Madison announced, voice steady despite unusual circumstances. Mr. Reyes, please approach witness stand. As he moved forward, Madison noted subtle differences from yesterday's encounter. Worn leather replaced by clean button-down shirt and khaki pants, military straight posture emphasizing height and breadth, typically minimized by casual stance. The transformation underscored separate worlds they inhabited. Roadside mechanic versus court witness, each role genuine yet distinct. After swearing in, Madison addressed the unprecedented situation directly. Mr. Reyes, for the record, I must disclose that you and I had brief interaction yesterday evening unrelated to these proceedings. You provided roadside assistance when my vehicle experienced mechanical failure on Route 16. Murmurs rippled through courtroom as attorneys exchanged glances. Defense counsel, Elliot Chambers, renowned for aggressive representation of motorcycle clubs, leaned forward with predatory interest. At that time, neither of us recognized our connection to this case, Madison continued. I've disclosed this coincidental encounter to both prosecution and defense. Does this summary align with your recollection? Jaden cleared his throat, discomfort evident despite controlled expression. Yes, Your Honor. I stopped to help with car trouble not knowing who you were. For complete transparency, did we discuss anything related to Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club or these legal proceedings? No, ma'am. he replied with military precision. Conversation was limited to mechanical issues, local services, and general topics during dinner afterward. Defense counsel rose immediately. Your Honor, dinner with prosecution witness represents significant concern regarding judicial impartiality. Roadside assistance created practical necessity for transportation to service location, Madison responded evenly. Shared meal represented appropriate acknowledgement of assistance rendered. Both occurred before either party recognized connection to these proceedings. The technical accuracy of her statement masked complex reality of genuine connection formed during their brief interaction. Connection now reframed through adversarial legal lens that transformed innocent encounter into potential ethical breach. The court has disclosed this interaction precisely to address appearance concerns, Madison continued. However, Mr. Reyes's testimony today relates specifically to technical questions regarding search warrant execution rather than substantive trial evidence. This careful limitation, focusing on narrow procedural questions rather than broader case merits, represented Madison's attempt to navigate ethical complications while fulfilling judicial responsibilities. Complete recusal would delay proceedings significantly, potentially jeopardizing prosecution timeline, while replacement judge familiarized themselves with complex case. As questioning proceeded, Madison maintained hypervigilance regarding her responses to Jayden's testimony, neither favorable nor unfavorable bias, responses based solely on legal standards rather than personal impression, formed during their highway encounter. The professional performance drained her more thoroughly than most complex legal arguments, heightened awareness of ethical boundaries requiring constant vigilance. Chambers approached cross-examination with characteristic aggression, immediately targeting relationship between witness and judge rather than evidence questions. Mr. Reyes, during your dinner with Judge Hayes, did you discuss your military background? Briefly, Jayden acknowledged cautiously. Mentioned Army service. Did you discuss your current employment status? Generally, construction work. Did you happen to mention your former association with Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club? Chambers asked. Question carrying obvious trap regardless of answer. Jayden's expression tightened. No. As stated, we weren't aware of any connection to these proceedings. Convenient oversight, Chambers noted with theatrical skepticism. Former prospect status seems relevant personal background during extended conversation. Objection, Weber interjected, mischaracterizes nature of interaction already established in record. Madison sustained objection automatically, professional response masking growing concern regarding witness harassment disguised as legitimate cross-examination. Chambers' strategy became increasingly apparent, undermining Jayden's credibility through implied impropriety rather than addressing evidence questions directly. Mr. Reyes, how many private meetings have you had with prosecution team? Chambers continued, pivot revealing broader strategy to undermine witness credibility generally. 3 formal interviews, Jayden replied carefully, all documented and disclosed in discovery materials. And how many with Judge Hayes? Objection. Weber rose immediately. Defense counsel is deliberately mischaracterizing coincidental encounter as improper meeting. Sustained. Madison maintained judicial temperament despite provocation. Mr. Chambers, your examination should address substantive evidence questions, not procedural matters already addressed. Chambers smiled without warmth. Simply establishing witness credibility, Your Honor, given unusual circumstances. The implied accusation hung in courtroom air, suggestion that roadside encounter represented something improper rather than coincidental assistance. Madison recognized deliberate strategy to create appellate issue, regardless of ultimate ruling on search warrant validity. When cross-examination finally concluded, Madison called brief recess to consider procedural options. In Chambers, she weighed competing concerns, ethical responsibility versus case management, appearance standards versus practical realities. Complete recusal would protect against appearance concerns, but create significant case delays affecting multiple defendants and witnesses. Limited recusal from Reyes-related matters might satisfy ethical requirements, while allowing proceedings to continue efficiently. Upon returning to courtroom, Madison delivered carefully constructed ruling. Having considered testimony and arguments presented, this court finds coincidental interaction with witness creates appearance concerns regarding testimony evaluation. Therefore, I am recusing myself from making factual determinations regarding Mr. Reyes's specific testimony. She paused, allowing significance to register before continuing. However, recusal is limited to this specific witness. Judge Martin Saunders will conduct separate hearing regarding search warrant executed at Mr. Reyes's property, while this court will maintain jurisdiction over remaining proceedings. The Solomon-like division represented judicial compromise, acknowledging ethical concerns while minimizing procedural disruption to complex case. Neither prosecution nor defense appeared entirely satisfied, suggesting balanced approach to competing interests. As session concluded, Madison deliberately avoided looking toward Jayden, maintaining professional distance despite awareness of damage inflicted by proceedings. His roadside kindness had been reframed as potential ethical breach, genuine assistance transformed into courtroom liability. Only after courtroom cleared did Madison permit herself momentary professional vulnerability, removing judicial robe with unusual weariness. The weight of competing responsibilities, to judicial ethics, to efficient case management, to fundamental fairness, had created unexpected burden beyond normal judicial challenges. Her clerk's gentle knock preceded urgent message. Judge Hayes, Marshal Reynolds needs to speak with you immediately. Security concern. The Chief Marshal's expression confirmed serious situation before he spoke. Judge, we've intercepted communication indicating potential threat against you from Steel Wolves Associates. References to handling the situation and teaching lessons about appropriate loyalties. Threat assessment, Madison asked. Professional response activating despite fatigue. Credible based on previous patterns, Reynolds confirmed grimly. Particularly concerning given today's developments with Reyes. We're implementing enhanced security protocols immediately. Madison processed implications with judicial precision despite personal alarm. Threats against federal judges unfortunately occurred with some regularity in criminal proceedings. Standard protocols typically sufficient for risk management. But connection to today's hearing suggested specific rather than general threat. Response to limited recusal decision and Jayden's involvement. Has Mr. Reyes been informed? She asked, question emerging before she could evaluate its appropriateness. Not yet, Reynolds replied with careful neutrality. Though given his cooperation with prosecution and apparent target status within organization, parallel protection measures may be warranted. The intersection of their separate worlds had expanded beyond ethical complications into potential physical danger. Roadside assistance now linked to courtroom testimony, linked to organizational threat response. Connection formed through momentary kindness had transformed into liability for both parties through circumstances neither could have anticipated. As marshals outlined security protocols, home surveillance, courthouse escorts, temporary communication restrictions, Madison found herself remembering Jayden's words from roadside encounter. We're all just one breakdown away from needing help. The profound truth of that observation extended beyond mechanical failures to ethical challenges and security threats, unexpected disruptions requiring assistance beyond individual resources. Their paths had crossed through apparent coincidence, yet subsequent development suggested more complex intersection than random highway encounter. What remained unclear was whether that intersection represented unfortunate liability or unexpected opportunity, as both navigated increasingly dangerous territory between justice system and criminal organization, seeking vengeance against perceived betrayal. The safe house overlooked Cedar Ridge from hillside vantage point. Location secret but visible consequences evident in Madison's restricted movements. 3 days since threat assessment had transformed her carefully structured life into security exercise. Marshal escorts between courthouse and temporary residence, canceled social engagements, constant awareness of surveillance both protective and potentially threatening. Preliminary hearing completed without incident, Marshal Reynolds reported during evening security briefing. Judge Saunders upheld search warrant validity. Steel Wolves leadership remains in custody pending trial. Any additional threat communications? Madison asked, professional focus maintained despite personal disruption. Nothing specific, but chatter continues. Reynolds' expression conveyed concern beyond verbal report. Intelligence suggests internal conflict within organization regarding appropriate response to Reyes's cooperation. The mention of Jayden, whom she'd neither seen nor communicated with since courtroom revelation, triggered complicated response Madison had been carefully avoiding examining. Their brief connection had been severed by professional necessity, yet lingering awareness remained despite judicial compartmentalization. "Has Mr. Reyes accepted protection?" she asked, question framed as case-relevant inquiry rather than personal concern. Reynolds hesitated briefly. He declined formal witness protection, accepted limited security measures but refused relocation. The response aligned with Madison's limited understanding of Jayden's character: independent, practical, resistant to external control despite clear danger assessment. She recognized similar traits in her own response to protection protocols, accepting necessity while maintaining maximum possible autonomy within security parameters. "Judge Hayes?" Reynolds continued with unusual hesitation. "There's additional development requiring your attention. Mr. Reyes has requested meeting with you." The statement disrupted Madison's professional composure momentarily. That would be inappropriate given my recusal from matters involving his testimony. "Request isn't related to case," Reynolds clarified. "He's identified potential security vulnerability in your temporary housing arrangement. Given his military background and local knowledge, Counterterrorism Task Force believes assessment should be considered." The explanation provided technical justification for connection that should remain severed, thin pretext that nonetheless offered pathway through ethical barriers established through formal recusal. Madison recognized manipulation yet found herself considering possibility despite judicial caution. "Any meeting would require appropriate protocols," she responded. "Decision neither acceptance nor rejection. Marshal presence, documented conversation, transparent parameters." "Of course," Reynolds agreed immediately. "Completely documented interaction, tomorrow afternoon, if approved." Madison's agreement represented compromise between professional responsibility and practical security concerns. Rationalization perhaps, but defensible within extraordinary circumstances created by credible threat assessment. The judicial ethics governing her decision-making permitted security exceptions where legitimate risk existed, creating narrow pathway through otherwise clear prohibition. When Jayden arrived following afternoon, transformation from previous encounters was immediately apparent. Tension evident in vigilant posture, cautious assessment of surroundings, controlled movements suggesting awareness of potential observation. Their connection had evolved from random roadside assistance through courtroom revelation into shared status as organizational targets. Progression neither could have anticipated during initial highway encounter. "Judge Hayes," he acknowledged formally, Marshall's presence enforcing professional distance despite complicated shared history. "Mr. Reyes," she responded with equal formality. "I understand you've identified security concerns regarding this location." His assessment was direct, technical rather than personal. "Southeast approach has insufficient coverage. Ridgeline provides direct sightline to main living areas. Anyone with basic tactical training could exploit vulnerability." The evaluation reflected military precision, strategic assessment without emotional overlay despite personal implications. Madison found herself responding to practical expertise rather than complicated history between them. Professional respect temporarily overriding ethical constraints. "Can existing security team address vulnerability without location change?" she asked. Question directed simultaneously to Jayden and Reynolds. "Possible but suboptimal," Jayden responded, glancing toward security monitors displaying property perimeter. "Better solution would be alternative location without established patterns." "We've considered secondary options," Reynolds confirmed reluctantly. "Challenge is balancing courthouse accessibility with security parameters." Conversation continued with professional focus, tactical considerations, logistical challenges, risk assessments. Madison maintained judicial objectivity despite awareness of unusual circumstances, Former roadside rescuer now providing security consultation regarding threats potentially triggered by their coincidental connection. As technical discussion concluded, unavoidable personal subtext finally emerged through professional veneer. "I should apologize," Jayden said during momentary privacy when Reynolds stepped away to take call. "My involvement complicated your professional situation." "You provided assistance to stranded motorist?" Madison corrected firmly. "Neither of us could have anticipated connection to pending case." "Still, dinner was optional," he noted with hint of previous easy manner briefly visible. "Should have just changed your tire and moved on." The observation, technically accurate yet emotionally incomplete, crystallized Madison's complicated response to their situation. The brief connection formed during unexpected roadside encounter had represented genuine human interaction outside professional roles that typically defined her existence. Its transformation into ethical complication and security threat hadn't negated authentic experience that preceded these developments. "Junction Diner offered significant improvement over protein bars in my glove compartment," she replied, momentary lightness acknowledging shared experience outside current complications. His brief smile suggested mutual recognition of distinction between coincidental connection and subsequent professional entanglement. "For what it's worth," he added with careful neutrality, "testimony wasn't personal, just trying to clean up old mistakes." The statement contained volumes beneath its surface, hints at complicated history with Motorcycle Club, explanation for cooperation that had placed him in current vulnerable position, perhaps even indirect acknowledgement that their coincidental meeting had occurred during transitional point between past associations and future aspirations. Madison recognized dangerous territory. Personal disclosure beyond security consultation, straying toward connection inappropriate, given her judicial position and his witness status. Yet human response temporarily overcame professional boundaries. "We all have past decisions requiring eventual reconciliation," she offered. Careful generalization nonetheless, acknowledging complexity beneath his statement. Marshal Reynolds' return prevented further conversation beyond professional parameters, interaction returning to security assessments and tactical considerations. When Jayden departed, marshal escort ensuring protected exit, Madison experienced complex response beyond professional evaluation. Their connection had evolved through unlikely circumstances into complicated association. Neither had sought, yet both now navigated with respective professional skills, her judicial ethics, his tactical assessment. Security protocols shifted following consultation. Vulnerabilities addressed through adjusted surveillance patterns and modified movement schedules. Madison maintained judicial responsibilities despite disruptions, courthouse proceedings continuing under enhanced protection, while Steel Wolf's case advanced toward trial, with Judge Saunders handling Reyes-related evidence. 3 days later, theoretical security concerns became immediate reality when perimeter alarms activated at midnight. Madison awoke to Marshall's urgent directive. Secure location compromised, emergency evacuation protocol, followed by controlled movement through darkened hallways toward garage access point. 2 vehicles breached outer perimeter, Reynolds explained during rapid transit. Intercepted before reaching residence, but secondary team may be operating in vicinity. The abstract threat assessment had transformed into concrete danger, tactical response requiring immediate movement without complete information or careful deliberation. Madison's judicial temperament, measured evaluation, considered response, balanced assessment, provided little guidance during security emergency requiring split-second decisions based on incomplete intelligence. Reynolds' communication device activated with urgent update. Primary extraction route compromised, seeking alternative pathway. The clinical terminology couldn't disguise fundamental reality. Planned escape route blocked by unknown threat requiring immediate tactical adjustment without established protocol. Madison recognized pivotal moment requiring trust in security team's expertise despite inherent uncertainty. Vehicle diverted from primary route onto secondary road, less traveled, more isolated, potentially offering both safety and vulnerability depending on threat assessment. Madison maintained composed exterior, despite internal recognition of genuine danger beyond theoretical risk evaluation. The comfortable illusion of control that typically defined her existence Judicial authority, structured procedures, ordered processes had been replaced by fundamental vulnerability requiring others' protection. When unmarked vehicle appeared ahead, positioned across narrow road creating effective blockade, Reynolds's tactical response confirmed hostile intent rather than coincidental positioning. Breach team, offensive positioning, prepare for engagement. The clinical terminology translated to imminent confrontation, security team preparing for potential violence while maintaining protective formation around primary asset, terminology Madison had encountered during security briefings but never expected to experience as operational reality. As security vehicles slowed, calculating response options against roadblock threat, unexpected movement emerged from roadside vegetation, motorcycle approaching rapidly from concealed position, tactical advantage suggesting coordinated operation rather than random encounter. Madison's recognition registered simultaneously with security team's defensive positioning, motorcycle riders' approach representing additional threat vector requiring immediate response. Reynolds's weapon appeared with practiced efficiency, threat assessment immediate and response prepared as motorcycle closed distance with concerning speed. Hold position. Unexpected voice commanded through security communication system. Friendly approach. Repeat. Friendly approach. Recognition crystallized as motorcycle halted alongside security vehicle. Jaden Reyes in full tactical positioning. Communication device matching security frequency, suggesting coordination beyond coincidental appearance. Reynolds' momentary confusion transformed to controlled reassessment as Jaden's urgent communication continued. Primary route compromised by 4-vehicle team. Secondary contains forward blockade as visible. Third extraction pathway available through maintenance access road half-mile northeast. The tactical intelligence, delivered with military precision suggesting operational knowledge rather than theoretical assessment, created momentary decision point for security team leader. Trust unexpected asset with critical extraction decision or maintain established protocol despite identified vulnerabilities. Reynolds' decision came with professional efficiency. Lead position to maintenance access. Security team maintains protective formation, acknowledging tactical necessity despite procedural irregularity. Madison registered complex reality beneath surface interaction. Judge's protection temporarily dependent on former witness whose connection began through roadside assistance. Progression nobody could have anticipated yet all now navigated. As vehicles repositioned, Jaden's motorcycle taking lead position with security detail, following precise distance behind, Madison recognized fundamental transformation in their connection. Initial roadside encounter had represented coincidental assistance between strangers. Courtroom revelation had created professional complication requiring ethical management. Current tactical cooperation represented something entirely different. Shared survival requiring mutual trust despite complicated history. The maintenance road Jaden identified provided narrow passage through dense vegetation, absence from standard mapping suggesting local knowledge beyond official security protocols. Madison maintained composed exterior, despite recognition of extraordinary circumstances. Federal judges' safety dependent on improvised extraction, led by former motorcycle club prospect whose cooperation with prosecution had potentially triggered current threat. What remained unclear was whether Jaden's presence represented coincidental advantage or coordinated response, whether roadside assistance had evolved through unpredictable circumstances into tactical cooperation, or whether more deliberate connection existed beneath apparent coincidence. Either possibility suggested their intersection extended beyond random encounter into territory. Neither had anticipated when motorcycles stopped alongside disabled Mercedes on Desert Highway. Actifu, the choice and epilogue. The safe house cabin nestled deep within national forest boundaries. Location unlisted in official records and accessible only through unmarked service roads requiring specialized navigation. 24 hours had passed since extraction operation had delivered Madison safely to temporary refuge. Security perimeter established and communication limited to essential personnel. Roadblock team apprehended, Reynolds reported during morning briefing. Steel Wolves associates with direct connection to leadership currently in custody. Immediate threat neutralized pending complete assessment. And Mr. Reyes? Madison asked. Judicial composure maintained despite unavoidable awareness of his critical intervention during extraction. Reynolds hesitated, professional caution suggesting complicated situation. He declined protective custody despite clear target status. Accepted emergency communication device but otherwise maintaining independent movement. The information aligned with Madison's limited understanding of Jayden's character. Practical self-sufficiency balanced against necessary cooperation. Independent decision-making despite acknowledged risk. She recognized similar approach in her own response to security protocols, accepting necessary protection while maintaining maximum possible autonomy within constraints. His intervention during extraction appears to have been coincidental, Reynolds continued, answering unasked question regarding Jayden's presence at critical moment. He identified likely extraction routes based on standard protocols and positioned himself to provide tactical support if needed. Coincidental, Madison repeated, word holding particular significance given sequence of events connecting their separate lives. Roadside assistance, courtroom revelation, tactical intervention. Pattern suggesting something beyond random chance despite absence of deliberate coordination. Fortuitous timing, Reynolds amended with rare precision. His military background and local knowledge provided tactical advantage during compromised extraction. Madison maintained professional focus despite personal questions lingering beneath surface. Her judicial responsibilities continued despite security disruptions. Case management conducted remotely. Hearings rescheduled where necessary. Essential court functions maintained through secure connections. 3 days later, security assessment downgraded from immediate to moderate following additional arrests and intelligence gathering. Madison's restricted movement expanded to include limited outdoor access within established perimeter. Welcome relief after extended confinement despite continuing security presence. During permitted morning walk along forest path, unexpected encounter materialized at boundary marker. Jayden's motorcycle parked just outside security perimeter, his presence triggering immediate response from protective detail until recognition established non-threat status. Perimeter check, he explained through security communication, official purpose providing plausible justification for proximity, making sure alternative extraction routes remain viable if needed. Reynolds's reluctant approval established temporary parameter exception, supervised interaction permitted within security protocols. Madison maintained judicial composure despite complicated circumstances. Former roadside rescuer turned courthouse witness, turned tactical asset now positioned at boundary between security and vulnerability. Your assistance during extraction was significant, or she acknowledged when security established sufficient privacy while maintaining visual contact. The outcome might have been quite different without your intervention. Returning the favor, Jayden replied with quiet directness. Highway assistance seems minor compared to what you're navigating now. The observation, connecting roadside encounter with current security situation through direct linearity, addressed unspoken reality of their unlikely connection. Initial coincidence had evolved through circumstances neither could have anticipated, yet both now navigated with respective professional skills. Circumstances have certainly evolved beyond flat tire, Madison noted, judicial understatement acknowledging extraordinary progression from highway meeting to current security protocols. Momentary silence settled between them, complex history creating both connection and necessary distance. Madison recognized dangerous territory, personal conversation beyond security consultation, approaching boundaries inappropriate given her judicial position and his witness status. Yet human acknowledgement temporarily transcended professional caution. Reynolds mentioned you declined protective custody, she observed, question implied rather than directly stated. Not my first encounter with Steel Wolf's attention, Jayden replied with careful neutrality. Managed before will manage now. Previous experience doesn't negate current risk assessment. His slight smile acknowledged her logical approach. Some situations require standing ground rather than tactical retreat. Can't rebuild by running. The philosophy, direct yet nuanced, suggested deeper motivation behind his cooperation with prosecution and subsequent security decisions. Not merely witness testimony but deliberate reclamation of territory surrendered during previous association with organization now targeting him for perceived betrayal. Madison recognized parallel to her own response, maintaining judicial responsibilities despite security threats rather than accepting complete removal from professional position, standing ground rather than surrendering territory established through years of careful work and principled decisions. The law provides frameworks for addressing threats within established systems, she noted, judicial perspective offering alternative to direct confrontation. Sometimes tactical patience yields better outcomes than immediate engagement. Different approaches for different situations, he acknowledged without disagreement. Your system works through established channels. Mine sometimes requires alternative pathways. The distinction, acknowledged without judgment from either perspective, crystallized fundamental difference in their approaches despite shared determination. Her judicial authority operated through structured procedures and orderly processes. His practical expertise functioned through direct action and immediate response. Different methodologies serving parallel objectives within respective contexts. When this situation resolves, Madison said carefully, professional boundaries maintained despite personal acknowledgement, perhaps we might have actual conversation without security constraints or judicial complications. The suggestion, neither commitment nor expectation, simply acknowledgement of connection beyond current circumstances, represented rare personal extension beyond professional parameters. Jaden's response carried equal care, respecting boundaries while acknowledging possibility. I'd welcome that opportunity, he replied simply, when appropriate timing arrives. Security details approach signaled conclusion to permitted interaction, professional parameters reasserting themselves as Reynolds announced updated protocols requiring return to primary safehouse. Madison maintained judicial composure during transition. Appropriate distance reestablished despite momentary connection beyond security consultation. 6 months later, Madison Hayes sat alone at outdoor cafe table reviewing case briefs during rare afternoon without court sessions. The Steel Wolves prosecution had concluded 3 months earlier. Leadership sentenced to substantial terms following conviction on multiple charges. Organization effectively dismantled through combined legal and security operations. Security protocols had gradually relaxed as threat assessment downgraded through progressive stages. Armed escorts replaced by occasional surveillance. Restricted movement expanded to normal patterns with enhanced awareness. Professional responsibilities resumed without significant limitations beyond reasonable precautions. When motorcycle approached parking area adjacent to cafe, Madison maintained casual exterior despite immediate recognition. Jaden Reyes had maintained appropriate distance during final prosecution phases, no contact beyond necessary security coordination, professional boundaries respected through mutual understanding of ethical requirements. Judge Hayes, he acknowledged with appropriate formality as he approached her table, public setting maintaining necessary professional distance despite personal recognition. Hope I'm not interrupting. Mr. Reyes, she replied with equal formality, judicial role acknowledged despite civilian setting. Please join me if you have a moment. As he settled across from her, Madison noted subtle transformation since their highway encounter nearly a year earlier. New construction company logo on his jacket, suggesting professional advancement, more relaxed posture indicating reduced security concerns. Quiet confidence replacing vigilant caution that had characterized previous interactions. I understand your testimony proved instrumental in final prosecution outcomes, she observed. Public knowledge permitting professional acknowledgement without inappropriate disclosure. Small contribution toward necessary resolution, he replied with characteristic understatement. Your judicial oversight ensured proper procedural framework despite complicated circumstances. The mutual professional recognition, acknowledgement of respective contributions without overstepping appropriate boundaries, created foundation for interaction beyond previous constraints. Case conclusion had established appropriate closure to professional entanglement. Ethical requirements satisfied through proper procedural management, despite extraordinary circumstances. I believe certain conversation was proposed following situation resolution, Jaden noted with careful directness. If timing remains appropriate. Madison considered his statement with judicial deliberation. Ethical requirements balanced against personal considerations. Professional responsibilities weighed against human connection, formed through extraordinary circumstances. Their unlikely intersection had progressed from roadside assistance through courtroom complications into security cooperation, evolution neither could have anticipated, yet both had navigated with respective integrity. "I believe appropriate timing has indeed arrived," she replied. Decision representing neither professional compromise nor ethical exception, but rather human connection beyond respective roles that had initially defined their interaction. As afternoon sun illuminated outdoor cafe, judge and former witness began conversation as simply Madison and Jaden, roadside encounter now transformed through extraordinary progression into beginning rather than conclusion, connection established through coincidence now explored through deliberate choice. Sometimes justice and mercy, like broken vehicles and highway assistance, create unexpected intersections between lives traveling separate roads toward parallel destinations. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and don't miss the next ride.